pastor to introduce Leon this morning, and thank you very much for stepping in under such short notice, and I know we're all looking forward to what you have to say, which is about receiving acts of kindness from strangers. He gave me his bio, and it's beautifully written and very telling and eloquent, so I'm just going to read it. The story of Leon Clymore, from fundamentalist to atheist. My father was an alcoholic, and we moved around the USA a lot due to his work. We were introduced to the Church of Christ in Ponca City, Oklahoma, when I was 11, and we became very active members. My understanding of Christianity was fundamentalism. The Church of Christ congregations believe they are the only true Christians. We didn't have musical instruments in the worship. We observed communion every Sunday, and youth were encouraged to attend our own Christian colleges after high school. I attended our colleges and decided to study to become a minister within the Church of Christ. At college, I met a missionary family who had worked for years in northern Rhodesia, later Zambia, so I decided to go to Zambia to work as a missionary. I married a young lady from California, Luella Cheney, who was also in the same college. So in 1958, we left for Zambia. We lived on a mission station out in the countryside. I taught school and went out preaching on the weekends. Later, we moved to the capital of Zambia, Lusaka, and I focused on village preaching and in-town evangelizing. Later, we moved to Malawi, and I continued my evangelistic work. We lived and worked 8 years in Africa as Christian missionaries. Our 3 children were born in Zambia. I began slowly to question the idea that we were the only Christians in the world. The more I read about the nature of the Bible and church history, the more I questioned our interpretation of the Bible and of Christianity. I also began to question God's actions and failure to act in the world. God did not act like he was on the side of justice in our world. How many of you agree with that? Slowly, I became an agnostic, then later an atheist. I left fundamentalist Christianity and joined this Unitarian congregation as an agnostic/atheist. Now, this is the wonderful part. I am 90 years old and regret that it took me so many years to work my way to atheism. I want to live a life of love, justice, compassion, and kindness. Let's welcome Leon to the pulpit.
Go Dogs! Got to address every part of the congregation. I am grateful to Stell and the Program Guild for asking me to speak today. Rolf Sloopsema was scheduled to speak today, but had a health problem and ended up in the hospital. I visited his home and talked to his wife, Stella, and she told me he would be coming home that same day. That was the day before Thanksgiving. And then yesterday I spoke with Ralph over the phone, and he said he's doing much better, got some good medicine from the hospital, and it's helping him. So we'll probably see him in a week or two. This is the season of kindness, generosity, and goodwill that we all enjoy so much. I'll be speaking on receiving acts of kindness from strangers. And the more I thought about this, the more I realized I have received so many acts of kindness from strangers in my life, and I'm very grateful for them. After I speak, I'm going to call on 2 or 3 people from the congregation to share their story of receiving an act of kindness I hope you'll be willing and ready to share with us, because I'd like to hear your stories. We'll be limited to a few minutes, and so I'll have to watch the clock. I did some research on what others have said on this topic and want to share their ideas with you as well as my own. One person suggested there is something so powerful about the kindness that comes from a person you have never met before. It is that unexpected kindness from a stranger that gives us hope for humanity. I might add that we live in an era when some national leaders are so self-centered, selfish, unkind, cruel, hate-filled, racist, and nationalist that we need to find some hope for humanity. When kindness is from friends, we feel valued and validated, but the kindness we receive from strangers touches us at a different level, much deeper. It gets etched permanently in our memories, even if we never meet them again in our lives. In December of 1967, I resigned from my position as a pastor of a Church of Christ congregation in Burlington, Washington. And my family and I began a trip from Washington to California. We drove an older car and had limited money for the trip, but thought we could make it okay. As we entered the mountains of Northern California at night, the car began to make a terrible noise, and we pulled into a small town just off the highway. As we entered the town, we saw a Church of Christ building, all lit up with cars in front, so we stopped, went inside, and when the people asked us how we happened to come by, we shared our story of woe. A family came up to us after the service and offered us a place in their home until we got the car fixed. We gratefully accepted this kind offer. I took the car to the garage the next morning and was told that the transmission was finished and they would have to order a transmission from San Francisco, and that this was going to take some days to get it and replace the old one. I told our kind family who had invited us to stay with them, and they were okay with this. Whew. We were there a week. Can you imagine? Before the car was repaired. They were so kind, giving us a place to sleep and meals. The church asked me to give a talk while we were there, so I did speak on a Wednesday evening. They didn't have a regular pastor at that time. You can imagine the mix of worries and feelings we were experiencing. I was embarrassed to not have sufficient money to be able to stay in a hotel the entire week, then pay the repair bill. So we needed to accept the hospitality they offered. We were so grateful for their kindness. Nowadays, I continued to think about how kind that family was. I don't know if they had an influence on us, but Lou and I have also tried to offer hospitality over the years to people for short or for longer periods of time. In 1959, Lou and I and our recently born daughter, Tricia, were living in Lusaka, Zambia, as a Christian missionary family. We decided to buy a new VW Bug there in Lusaka, and the day we picked it up, we decided to give it a spin to see how it felt. After a short drive, the VW stopped running, and we pulled to the side of the road. The Bug had no gas gauge, but I determined that it was out of gas. Recently arrived in Lusaka, we didn't have any friends with a car, so they could bring us a container of gas. So we wondered, what are we going to do? No telephone, cell phones in those days. At this point, a car pulled past us, then stopped, and a white man walked to our car and asked us, "Having a spot of bother?" He was British, of course, and turned out to be a manager at the VW dealer where we bought the car. I said that I thought we were out of gas, didn't know for sure because it didn't have a gauge. He told us of a little switch under the dashboard that if we turned it, the motor would draw from a small reserve of gas. I did it, and the motor came alive. I still don't know what we would have done if that man hadn't shown up. We're grateful for his kindness. Lou and I served in Zambia and Malawi, Africa, for 8 years. I was always going out into the villages to preach the Christian message. Often the village people didn't know me, I didn't know them, but they received me with such kindness and generosity. They offered me good food, housing, hot water in a bucket to take a simple bath, and often gave me gifts to take back home, such as a chicken, vegetables, or fruit. I'm still very grateful for their many, many kindnesses to me. I'm remembering the first day that I came to First E and the kindness of Robert Stewart. He welcomed me so kindly. We went out to a Starbucks to get to know each other and had a wonderful conversation for over an hour. My memories of the acts of kindness from strangers are mostly from decades in the past. Why can't I remember more recent stories? Maybe it's part of my old age syndrome, in which long ago memories are easy to remember than recent experiences. I looked up on the internet for some stories of kindness of strangers. I thought I'd share them with you. Quote, "My parents got divorced when I was 10. My mom and I struggled financially after that, and our first few holidays were hard. My first Christmas after the divorce was difficult and emotional for both of us. On my first Christmas Eve without our dad, the doorbell rang, and when I opened the door, no one was there, but someone had left an envelope. In the envelope was a card from Santa with a few $100 bills. Someone had anonymously tried to give us a great Christmas. And to this day, we still have no idea who it was. I'll remember them forever." Another story. This is by Leslie Wagner of Peel, Arkansas. "When the supermarket clerk tallied up my groceries, it was $12 over what I had on me. I began to remove items from the bags when another shopper handed me a $20 bill. "Please don't put yourself out," I told him. "Let me tell you a story," he said. "My mother's in the hospital with cancer. I visit her every day and bring her flowers. I went this morning and she got mad at me for spending my money on more flowers. She demanded that I do something else with the money. So here, please accept this. It's my mother's flowers." I like that. Another story. Leaving the store, I returned to my car only to find that I'd locked my keys and my cell phone in the car. A teenager riding a bike saw me kick a tire and say a few choice words. "What's wrong?" he asked. I explained my situation. "But even if I could call my wife," I said, "she can't bring me her car key since this is our only car." He handed me his cell phone. "Call your wife and tell her that I'm coming to get her key. That's 7 miles round trip. Don't worry about it." An hour later, he returned with my key, I offered him some money, but he refused. Just let's say I needed the exercise. That's from Clarence Stevens from Nicholasville, Kentucky. I am told by therapists that kindness to strangers or from strangers improves mental health. It reduces anxiety, depression, and stress. It increases happiness, calm, and gratitude. It boosts oxytocin and endorphins. It improves sleep and lowers inflammation. It builds a sense of purpose and belonging. Don't you wish you got more gifts from strangers? Kindness from strangers helps to build a healthier society. It breaks down barriers by transcending social, economic, and cultural barriers. It acknowledges our shared humanity and our interconnectedness. It builds trust and strengthens our belief in the goodness of people and fosters a sense of trust in people. It increases reciprocity. We are more likely to pay it forward as a result. It recognizes our shared vulnerability. It reminds us we're not alone in our struggles. When our family arrived in Atlanta from California in 1979, we had no jobs. I had been promised one, but then got it snatched away from me before we left California. We had heard from friends of a church we might want to attend, so we began attending the Brook Valley Church of Christ. I shared with the congregation that we were looking for jobs. One man in the congregation came to me and said he would speak a word to his company's human resources department and that I should come and apply. I did so and got a very good job as a computer programmer. Turns out he was the executive director of Bell South. So what he said, he got. We were strangers, but he was so kind to offer his help. I'll never forget his kindness to us. Well, I'm finished with my remarks, and I'd like for 2 or 3 people to share an experience in which they received an act of kindness from a stranger and what they felt about that. So, I'll get the mic and offer it to you. Is there anyone here who would have a story to tell? Good. All right. Remember to hold the mic like this, not like this. Okay.
Thanks for reminding. I'm Linda, and a lot of you know I taught at Georgia State until I retired. But when I came up for tenure, my department didn't think much of what I was doing, particularly with Sartre and existentialism, but I think generally they did not want a woman in their midst. And so they were advising people not to take my courses and students. But anyway, when I came up for tenure, I only had 1 vote from the department in favor of my getting tenure. And if those of you who don't know what that means you're without a job if you don't get tenure after 7 years of being an assistant professor. And so anyway, the dean had just appointed a committee, the dean, to advise him about tenure. Before, it was just in the hands of the dean. And so I took advantage of that and the fact that the department said that in their non-recommendation, they said that I had enough publications, but they just weren't good enough. And so I wrote to the biggest names, people I really respected the writings of, and in the areas that I'd published in, and said there was a dispute in my department about the worthiness of my publications, and would they be so kind as to read and evaluate what I had written. All but one generously agreed to do that. And I really didn't know almost everybody on my list. They didn't know me except for the writing that I sent them after they agreed. One was not very generous, and he said, "You should know I disagree with everything you've said." And so he didn't agree. But they must have written very generous evaluations, because I did get tenure. And I owe so much to them, and it's wonderful to be able to say how much I owe to people. And I mean, there's so many more, but that's kind of the biggest.
Thank you. Thank you. I see Jen.
Well, I've actually got a bunch, but I'm just going to tell one. My ex-husband was a reptile breeder, and we used to go down to Orlando every year for the biggest reptile expo in the world. And we sold T-shirts and tote bags and other tchotchkes with reptiles on them. And we were on our way home, and in Gainesville, we had a camper, like a Toyota camper, small, and it broke down. And this was before cell phones and all that. And this couple pulled up behind us. I think they had a couple of kids with them. And the guy waited with us until we could get a tow truck to come get the camper, and then took us to our hotel, and then came back the next morning to pick us up to go get the camper. It's like, you didn't have to do this. And they're like, oh, no, we don't mind. And we give them a bunch of T-shirts and stuff, but that wasn't why they did it, of course. But it was just, it's like such a sweet thing to do to a total stranger. And then just one more quick one. I was at a training once, and I came out and I just felt this overwhelming sense of depression, and I didn't know why. I didn't even have a reason, but I just stood there against my car and just started crying. And this woman came up to me and she said, "Are you okay?" And then she just started hugging me. And she just stood there with me for about 5 minutes and hugged me, and, until I got over it. And it changed so much for me that day, just that somebody would take that time and just be that kind.
Thank you, Jan. Yes.
I, too, was one of those people that was in the grocery line and realized that I didn't have enough money. So I told the clerk, I said, can you just put those aside, and I'll go home and get some more money and come back. And the person behind me, the man behind me, said, "Oh, you don't have to do that. Here, I'll cover the rest of it." And I said, "Well, give me your name and, how I can get back in touch with you to give you money back." And he said, "No, I don't want, to do that. I want you to just enjoy and, feel good." And I did. It was a wonderful experience. Total stranger. The second thing is, last Christmas, Chancey and I were so tired at the end of the holiday season that we packed all of our. Chancey is a Christmas freak, so we have Christmas everywhere in the house, and so we packed it all up. But then the idea of having to take it up the stairs and then up the stairs to put it in the attic, it was like, we can't do it. we put a thing on the neighborhood Facebook page and said we'd like to pay somebody to come and help us. And somebody responded and said, my teenagers would really like to come and help you, but we refuse to take any money, for it. So even though they lived in my neighborhood, we had no idea who they were. But these kids, teenagers, came over, and of course, they had no trouble going up and down the steps, and had it done in no time. And they refused to take any money for it, even though we could try to, give it to them, under the table, but they said no, and it just really warmed our hearts that people that didn't know us were so willing to come and help us out.
Thank you, Marcia. Anybody else? Ed.
Hi, mine's not about a individual experience, but my dad was always. I just always felt he was at his happiest when he was helping other people and doing something. I was lighting a candle on behalf of him earlier before the service, and it taught me a little bit about, as you said, accepting kindness from strangers, because you're not just accepting the resources they're giving, you're accepting their kindness. And I've traveled in third world countries or something where someone is being kind to you, even though you have resources and they don't have nearly those resources, and they're being kind, and I would think about turning it away because I don't deserve this. But then you realize, well, they're getting joy out of giving also, and then joy is contagious, it goes back and forth. So I learned to also, never turn away, even if I have lots of resources and someone else doesn't, and they're offering to be kind, that brings joy to other people too. So, it's diplomacy there, I suppose. But I just, great joy from doing good deeds. What do we say? From kindness, but also from, it goes both ways. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Bill? Maybe we'll have to stop after Bill.
Okay, I'll be brief. Here's something I don't think about all that often, but a total stranger, right? At the entrance of Emory, this must have been the end of the 80s. Now it's a CVS, but there was a Kroger store there. So I was in the Kroger store. I don't think I looked that bad. I was dressed okay. I think I was heading to a thing up on the Emory. What? Okay. So in the Kroger store, I purchased some groceries. And included in what I had was some avocados. So I walked out of the store and I actually peeled an avocado, and I was eating it. And that must have looked weird. This person I didn't know, she walked up to me, right? I didn't even greet her exactly. She walked right up, had a $20 bill in her hand. She probably thought since I was eating an avocado, I was hard up. That's the only thing I can think. So she walked up and she said, "Hey, am I able to help you out?" And I said, "Well, I don't think I really needed that horribly. I think I was carrying some cash, probably $80 or so. So I didn't need the 20. I said, I don't really need it. But, And she said, "Please, go ahead and take it." And I said something to her like, I said, "Well, you're probably well off," or something like that. And here's what she said. She said, "No, I'm just not an asshole." And then she walked on. So that was an act of kindness, total stranger to me. She said, "No, I'm just not an asshole. Enjoy the money." Anyway. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for participating and sharing with us. I've enjoyed those.
Are you closing off? Oh, okay. Well, he said he's finished. I wish he wasn't. It's been great. A closing song, I don't have it with me. It's what's the number? 106? 106. One of my favorites in the pink hymnal, 106. Song of the Soul.